You know, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get a little bit of a controversy before we start. We're doing a podcast today about the early years of the player that's considered the greatest goalie in the history of the NHL. Who do you think it might be? Jacques Plante, Grand Fuhrer, Martin Brodeur. In a poll in 2004, Patrick Roy was selected as the greatest goalie in NHL history by a panel of 41 writers, coupled with a simultaneous fan poll. Eventually, he was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame on November 13th, 2006. Now, because he's the only goalie in NHL history to win the Conn Smythe trophy 3 times, the only one to do so in different decades, and the only one to do so for two teams, he also was one of the few players in NHL history to have their jersey retired by 2 teams, number 33. Now, I'm going to be shocked this. I don't think he's the greatest goalie of all time. You're saying why? Well, I watched Vladislav Tretiak play. I watched Martin Brodeur play. I watched Ken Dryden play. I watched Tony Esposito play. I never watched Jacques Plante play, but he's up there as well. It's kind of hard because his potential was ruined away when he left Montreal. Now, he did win a cup in '89 because his team didn't back him up. He eventually left Montreal in disgrace, but that happens with players sometimes. Now, I basically believe he's a top 5 goalie of all time, but I would need more than a poll from 2004 to determine the last 16 years there's been a real look, because you had money goaltenders like Jerry Cheevers, okay? You had positional players and legendary long-time AHL and NHL players like Johnny Bower, okay? But Vladislav Tretiak, for me, pound for pound, is the greatest goalie of all time. But that's not what the podcast is about. We're going to talk about the early years of Patrick Roy. Now, Patrick Jacques Roy was born October 5th, 1965 in Quebec City. Now, at 6'2", 190, he didn't seem 6'2", because he had some of the crouching position, wore some of the biggest pads and jerseys in the history of goalies, NHL history. He was born again in the capital to parents Barbara Miller and Michel Roy. He's the older brother of hockey player Stéphane Roy. Now, Roy became interested in being a hockey goalie when he was 7 years old. He eventually played in 1977 and 78 Quebec International Pee Wee hockey tournaments on a minor ice team from Quebec City, which included his brother Stéphane in 1978. After playing for the local Sainte Foy Gouverneurs, he started his professional career with the Sherbrooke Canadians of the AHL. Now, Patrick, early in Sainte Foy, that 82 season, went 27-3-10 with a 2.63 average, with a 2-0 record in the playoffs, and probably one of the best AAA midget leagues in all of Canada. He graduated to Granby Bison in 1983, but had a tough year for Granby. 13-35-1 with a 6.26 goals against average, 293 goals against. Now, 84 with Granby, when the league was still, high scoring, 29-29-1 with a 4.44 average. Now, 85, he played with Granby again, 16-25-1. Now, you wouldn't think a goalie that under 500 would draw a lot of attention, but Montreal saw something in him, and he was drafted 51st overall in '84, and eventually found his way to their pro team in Sherbrooke. Now, they already had Steve Penny. They already had various backups were more than commendable, but for some reason, Montreal gave him a look-see, and he won his first start. Actually, he only played 20 minutes, but good credit would win. In Sherbrooke, he went 1-0 in 1 game. But here, he played the whole season at Granby, and again, 16-25-1. You wouldn't think a 5.55 average would equate to this. But the Sherbrooke Canadians need a goalie for the playoffs, and this is where he came to major problems. Again, drafted in the third round, 51st overall, and he disliked the team because he was a big fan of the rival Quebec Nordiques. So this was very unique here. His grandmother, Anna Peacock, was a big Canadiens fan, but died before seeing her grandson being drafted. Now, he spoke no English when he entered in the Canadiens universe. Now, despite the thoughts that he was not ever going to play for the team, on February 23rd, 85, again he made his NHL debut when he replaced the Canadian starting goalie, Doug Sotart, who was the backup to Steve Penny in the game's third period. He played for 20 minutes and got the win. Now, after the game, he was reassigned to the Canadiens Sherbrooke of the AHL. Now, he started as a backup in Sherbrooke, but eventually replaced the very talented Greg Moffat after he had equipment troubles during a game. Because he played so well that contest, he got the win, and he became the starting goalie for the playoffs and led the team to a Calder Cup championship with 10 wins in 13 games. Now, the following season, Roy started playing regularly for the Habs and took over the starting goalie's job from incumbent Steve Penny, who was injured in January. He played 47 games during the regular season, and again, the rest is history. He made the playoff upsets, bet Hartford in the final of their division, and he became MVP. And now at age 20, he became the youngest Conn Smythe winner ever, and was chosen the NHL All-Rookie team. So the situation with Patrick, what's very, very interesting, in my memory, there was no goalie drafted around that era had such a losing record with giving up a high amount of goals per game. That went on from that, not saying mediocrity, but you got to look at this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen, okay? He only had between an 84 and 87% save percentage these 3 years with Granby. He averaged giving up 265 goals a season. But that 84 season, when he was drafted, 29, 29, and 1, he took Granby to the playoffs. He lost all 4 of their starts. But something clicked. Montreal wanted a pure francophone star to be in net because he tried different people. He tried Denis Aron, didn't work. He tried Roger Sevigny, didn't work. Steve Penny was, like I said, not the great Quebecois goalie that was projected on him in '84. He was a very good minor league goalie who had really excelled in limited action or limited pressure in the NHL. But the '84 system that Montreal was playing benefited Penny. But the thing, when he had to open out, and when all the rookies came up from Sherbrooke, there was no need for him. So it was kind of weird. But did I know at the time, I was starting as a journalist in New Brunswick, around the same time Patrick was coming in, did I know Patrick Roy was going to be the savior of the Montreal Canadiens? Of course not. He did an article with Sports Illustrated, which I think he was rooming with Lucien Deblois, which was, a long-time player with the Rangers who came over to Montreal. And he couldn't speak a word of English. I said, well, okay, this is your typical, Sports Illustrated, fish out of water tale that you do sometimes on baseball players from Cuba or football players from Canada playing the NFL or the CFL, moving the NFL like Joe Theismann. But when I heard from my pals in college, they had some contacts in Sherbrooke, and they were saying, this guy that's playing up there, this could be the starting goalie for Montreal Canadiens. And that '86 season, okay, here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. His average went down from his Q years a full 2 goals. Can you imagine? 2 goals less a game. So I don't know if it's the Montreal's, pressure defense, but what was kind of ironic here, like I said, the NHL didn't know what they had. He never promoted Patrick Roy in that first season. And if you look at the old tapes from '86, he'd even have the Montreal Canadiens decal on his mask, which is a sign like he probably didn't expect he was going to be with Montreal in the first place. To even have a Sherbrooke Canadiens stylized CH logo, because Sherbrooke Canadiens had kind of that logo, but it wasn't the same as the Habs. So this podcast is just talking about the early years of Patrick Roy, if you never heard about him. But let me know if you think he's the greatest goalie of all time. 16 years later, still a heavy debate. Again, this is just me. I saw him in '72. I saw him for 8 total years. He only lost 5 games that really counted. Four games against Team Canada, Summit Series, right? And against United States in 1980. Besides those 5 games, and maybe 1 game in the Summit Series, so that's 6. So from 1970 to 1980, he only lost really 6 games that really counted. That includes World Championships, that includes European Championships, that includes Olympic Games, that includes games exhibition games against NHL teams didn't really count because it was an exhibition. So, but I want to get indication from the listeners what you want me to talk about Patrick Roy in the next podcast. It's going to be a specific request. All I know is this: Patrick Roy made the NHL of the 80s. And, 89, he didn't really do what was needed. If you look at the 89 game 6, he was kind of weak on a couple of goals. Like, he would lose concentration every once in a while. But he bet Gretzky in 93. But did he play his best hockey in Colorado? Of course not. His best hockey was, again, between 1985 and 1993 with Montreal before Mario Tremblay tried to do mind games. By the way, there's a podcast I've done on how Mario Tremblay ran Montreal out of town. You know what almost killed the franchise? Ladies and gentlemen, they were struggling until Doug Gilmour arrived in Montreal. And yes, Doug Gilmour played with Montreal, in case the Toronto fans are listening. He did play. Saved the franchise. It was devastating. We weren't making the playoffs. We couldn't keep players. Sako Koivu was sick. Players were getting injured left and right. We were getting bad refereeing, bad results on the road, bad goaltending. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, happy Christmas week. Happy Festivus, happy Yule, happy Hanukkah, happy Christmas. And if you're an atheist, well, eat your turkey by yourself because you got nobody to celebrate with because you don't believe in anything but yourself, which is mean it's kind of you're boring. By the way, if you're an atheist listening to my channel, I can't help you. I'm not saying that. It's the Church of Satan saying that. Because the Church of Satan always says atheists can't work with him because I believe there's a God, but God is weaker than Satan. Have a good one. Bye.